She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frock, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cock-a-crow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cock-a-crow, dog-a-bark, donkey bray, horse and they even duck-a-quack. Cock-a-crow, dog-a-bark, donkey bray, horse and they even duck-a-quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day a back down, me now a come home. The naga jackass yard for fetchy load. Cockle shy hand, bag over shoulder, running by his side, a Rexy and Rover. From the farm, them a come. Sun a go down but up the river. Some washing clothes, some folks are bathing at the water. Fisherman, they catch them a bring. From a canoe boat, man, them start offloading. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Lokonani. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Banga Mary. Listen to this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. Them children glad when the weekend come. Out in the yard, them all gather round. Some a play catcher, some making house from straw. Two who come later, a grandma or grandpa. All a sit down just a wait. Moonlight so bright, it's just the right time to listen story or to say a little nursery rhyme. Grandpa voice a echo in the night as he tell the tale. Some picnic are there with fright. Oh, Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurma, Bura, Nancy, even Watamuma. Oh, Ligan.
It's an eco-friendly Christmas. The Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union is pleased to present our annual Christmas promotion, commencing November 1st, 2021 and concludes December 17, 2021. The credit union recognizes and acknowledges the importance of minimizing our carbon footprint and has tailored this year's promotion to suit by presenting our members with an electric car and bikes, which will undoubtedly raise awareness and help our members to adopt. To participate, one must be a member of the Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union, must like and follow the credit union's Facebook page, must have an existing loan with the credit union, must be in good standing with the credit union, must not be an immediate family member of any staff or committee member, must earn a gross of less than $150,000 monthly, and proof of this fact must be attached. And only one coupon is allowed per member. It's an eco-friendly Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you, so call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
If you are looking to have your statutory declaration, affidavit of income, identity, damage or lost passport, lost license, tenancy agreement, agreement of settlement, power of attorney, last will and testament, and certification of documents, then you need to visit the Alistair Collins firm, located at the Kellyan Mall, 162 Lamaha Street in Georgetown, between Camp and Waterloo Street. Alistair Collins is a commissioner of oaths and a justice of the peace. Make certain you visit him or call for more information at 649-6410 or 685-6448 or 503-1451. And there's adequate parking available. Go down to the Alistair Collins firm and have all of your legal issues settled and brought to the fore. Alistair Collins firm. Contact them at Alistair Collins firm.
Good evening. It is now 21 hours 5 in Guyana and perhaps around the Caribbean. Welcome to another program of Benchcap Radio. Tonight's program of Straight Up. I am Kidaki Amsterdam. I'll be co-hosting with Mark. I trust that you would have had a wonderfully productive day and you remained safe. And I can tell you that there are lots of things that we'll be talking about tonight on the Straight Up show. Certainly, you would have heard that address by Irfan Ali, and certainly we are going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about other things. We're expecting Richard Van West Charles on the show, Dr. Richard Van West Charles, and we're going to be talking about that Congress which comes up on the 11th of December. Mark, are you there?
Yes, Kadaki, good night. Thanks for starting. We had a little hiccup with Lemon in the background, who is acting up again. Lemon is our operator. All of our listeners know Lemon. He has been acting up again. I just thought I'd let them know that. But he is back and he's behaving now. So thank you, Kadaki, for the start of the show. Give our listeners, I've noticed a lot of Buxtonians already in the house. Miss Booker and all the others are on. What's happening in the village of Buxton and surrounding villages? Give us, especially after this announcement of this comical 7% that the regime is talking about. What are some of the talks in the villages?
Well, certainly a lot of people are disappointed. You're hearing talks of how disappointed they are with the 7%. As a matter of fact, a lot of people see it as an I-pass, right? Guyanese like say, yeah, it passed me. And so a lot of people are not pleased. They're displeased with that 7%. But at the same time, you see, as some people would say, half a loaf better than no bread. Some people are saying, well, they're happy to get even that 7% because they didn't get anything for 2 years.
All right, but the 7% seem to have been, and especially the lashback that the regime has received, and serious flashback, because even their own supporters are talking about that meager 7%. It amounts to basically nothing. Plantain chips money, chicken foot money, puri money, mango sour money, not even guinea money, because it's really not much. Were you surprised, Kadaki, that Irfan Ali called an early morning press conference at State House?
Well, quite frankly, yes, I was surprised because usually they like to make a big hullabaloo about these things and announce them with much fanfare. But this one was done like the thief in the night. You just started hearing whispers that Irfan was addressing the nation, as they say. And what an address. I think it lasted for 41 minutes, and the amount of repetition. I'll tell you, Mark, the youngest member of my family would have done better at quote unquote representing the matters that Irfan Ali attempted to represent. But it becomes very, very difficult, and that is the challenge that he would have had to justify the unjustifiable. Because I don't know in an oil economy who could defend 7% increase for the public servants when that 7% is taxed to start with, and when you do the math, it comes down to about $2,000 per month in your salary, when the
Yeah,
cost of living has
just
rocketed 14.
just a little over $2,000. It can't even buy a bag of rice or anything because cost of living gone sky high in that country. Every single thing from oil, cooking oil, you name it, everything. Kadaki, you are there on the ground. But we are co-hosting, so you may probably want to talk about some other stuff instead of me asking the questions. But I'd like to know, especially, and I know you do this a lot on your show as well, to talk about the cost of living in that country. The ordinary man, woman, regardless of their political affiliation, they are feeling the squeeze.
Certainly, they are feeling the squeeze. Listen, if you want to feel the pulse of the nation, in my mind, a lot of us like to look at our local celebrities. And I mentioned, for example, this morning, I was listening to Phyllis Robertson. I think she has a show they call the Hangout or something. And those ladies were there talking. And you also know when the ladies usually are the people managing the money and so on. And so you get to feel what's happening. And they were there talking about the squeeze which they're feeling, right, with the increased cost of living. I remember one of the participants saying that her child used to take 2 snacks to school. That is now down to 1 snack, right? And a lot of the things that they used to buy previously, they can no longer buy. Just this afternoon, for example, I passed the Lusignan market. Lusignan has its market on Friday afternoons, and it's usually big. And I passed there this afternoon, and all you saw, for the most part, were the vendors, right? And those are indications of what people really are facing in terms of the cost of living and rising prices. And guava season, hard guava season.
Guava season indeed, and many folks would understand what we mean by guava season. It simply means things rough. It's not as what it used to be, because even under the coalition, people were getting by, people were happy, people were beginning to breathe again. They're being stifled under this regime. But for a man to go to bed, go to sleep, assuming that he slept at State House, and this 7%, this meager 7% was obviously on his mind. And he just couldn't sleep at all. It was bothering him. And so Air Finale at 7:30 in the morning, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, he decided to hold a press conference outside of State House with some sort of white teacup and drinking coffee or whatever he was drinking in there, whether it was vodka, we don't know, or Senapad. But it was a shameful press conference. You are correct that even someone, the smallest child in your house out there in Buxton, the smallest child, would have done a better job. I agree with you. But, it is bothering him, though, because throughout the country, people are complaining about this meager 7% that amounts to absolutely nothing at all. Kadaki, any other subject you want to bring up? You're my co-host.
Well, yes, we'll talk about other things, but let me just zero in on the fact that here is a guy who is begging the unions to accept the 7%. And trying to, when you try to appease the situation, we have other announcements to make. What are the other announcements you have to make, right? What are the other announcements? Why they weren't made before? Are you now going to come and give us another fair promises, Guyanese like to say, of another meager $25,000, some kind of grant for some kind of relief? Because one of the things he kept using to justify the 7% is adding up all of the grants. You do things for your friends, and when they bad talk you, then you reflect on all that you did. Remember they gave you this, remember they gave you that. That is the behavior of the man. And I'm pathetic, to say the least. What else do I want to talk about? Karambash is in the news again, right? This time he is in the news because the ranks of Soku are saying that Soku is in disarray because Karambash has very poor management skills and behaves like a king, ordering people around, bullying people around, and so on, and has no understanding of the roles of Soku and how it should be operating. right?
We just want folks to know that Karim Baksh is the head of SOCU, and he's a very junior rank. And we also want to remind the listeners that many years ago, Karim Baksh, whilst he was stationed in New Amsterdam, he shot off the leg of a little boy, a 14-year-old boy, who was hiding in a closet. So just to give a background of who Karim Baksh is.
More than that, people also should know that he has disciplinary charges against him for sexually harassing two ranks while they were training at the Felix Austin Police College while he was in charge, right? As a matter of fact, I think it is that investigation which prevented him being placed on the promotion list, right? And so
I think that matter was brought before the court as well. So it is indeed, it was brought before the court. It stopped him from being promoted through the Police Service Commission. You're correct on that. Mr. Kadaki, who is my co-host this evening, no stranger to you guys. He runs the Kadaki program right here on social media.
On CAMS TV.
Yeah, we will get to that though. But just a reminder, you said something, and it's Friday night. We'll go a little light because our operator said that Mr. or Dr. Richard Van West Charles is in the background waiting for us. We'll have him wait the next couple of minutes indeed. You said Guyanese have this tendency of like to talk what they give people, right? I just want to say that shirt that I sent to you, it's looking good on you, man. It's looking good.
Thank you, man. At least you got my size correct.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're and so what about all that? What about the talks about these fires, man? Suspicious fires. Of course, those in the installed regime, they want to blame other folks, folks living outside of Guyana, even without any evidence. But I dare them to name those individuals they're pointing fingers at. Let them name those individuals. If they get more than by gun.
There's a saying that when you point one finger forward, there are four others or three others pointing back at you. Fires that destroy state buildings in this country historically can be placed at the feet of the PPP. I can name so many. One of the first major fire to destroy a state entity in this country, I remember as a youngster then growing up, was on Homestretch Avenue. I think the Ministry of Housing used to be there.
Yeah, Sheikh Baksh was then the Minister of Housing, and Odinga Lumumba had his office right there too. So you're correct.
Exactly. Right, and there's so many other fires. The PPP has a love for fire, quite frankly, because again, history tells us that when they were up against the Burnham administration, they used to, and they wanted to sabotage, they used to light rats of fire and lose them in the cane fields. So these people are known for fires. I am not surprised, and I won't be surprised if when, as they say, night your turn today, who the real architects behind these fires are. For the first time in the history of this country, I've seen a fire taking place, and the cleanup started before the embers were cooled. So what did the overseas people give instruction to clean up Brick Dam site as quickly as it was cleaned up so that you cannot get a proper investigation? I don't know.
They think people are stupid.
Yes,
even I like to supporters don't buy into their propaganda.
I like to say full attack, full not listen. Right? Some people and you tell a lie so often that sometimes you tend to believe it yourself. You trick yourself into believe it. That is how they behave. Because I know, and everybody should know, that they have a scourge policy. And if anything is going to be revealed that will embarrass them, they would rather destroy everything to protect their image. And I believe those fires are falling in that same bracket.
I like that saying. I like that. Fool attack, but fool not listen. Fool attack, but fool not listen. Kadaki Amsterdam is with me this evening. Kadaki, here is something that I want to go at. But before we do, let's say that this is coming from this guy who is the head of Guy Oil. And you all know the controversy there at Guy Oil. Lots and lots of corruption. But we're going to get into that. Not alleged corruption. Corruption. The Auditor General report actually said that there's corruption. and called for an investigations and those responsible to be charged. It's months now and nothing at all. This guy's name is Paul Chung. This is what he's saying about the fire. He's now a fire chief. He says most concerning is the fact that these fires are being directed against institutions which form part of the architecture of civility and law and order. Yeah, he suddenly believes in law and order. But in closing, this is what he says. The commission has noted, meaning the private sector commission, he's also head of the private sector commission, has noted that well-known political spokespersons taking comfort by the fact that they live in the USA, have sought to encourage and publicly promote terrorist activity in Guyana. I want him to name those overseas spokespersons. If he gets seed more than Biden, name it. What are your thoughts on this reckless statement coming from the head of the Private Sector Commission?
Well, quite frankly, again, I don't know if people have short memories or if they believe that people are not observant. The Private Sector Commission for me is just, what should I say, an attachment to the PPP. It's a creature of the PPP. And so you can't be surprised that they are just echoing what has been said by Brocker Ben, by Robeson Ben, the Minister of Home Affairs, who is responsible for the fire service and so on. So you can't be surprised that they are simply echoing sentiments that come from people like Ben and I think Manik Chand, and I think I saw a couple other members of the PPP government administration who are trying to lay these fires at the feet of overseas activists, right? And so I'm not surprised. The reality is the Private Sector Commission has been so politicized that anything that they utter, everybody has to take with a pinch of salt and look for the political puppeteer behind them, because that's what they are.
Exactly. But the head of the Private Sector Commission, Paul Chung, he's also the head of Guy Oil, the chairman of Guy Oil. This is what he said just before they were installed into office. This is his Facebook page. This comes as no surprise. 24th of July, he says here, the PNC cabal, when will you guys come clean to this nation? Fraud is fraud, right? Let's speak about Mingo, verified fraud, or shut up. Mingo was never given his time, his day in court, or nothing. But look at this guy who is talking fraud is fraud and is supporting a man who was charged with 19 fraud charges. 19 fraud charges, his good friend Irfan Ali. These people, Paul Chung has no moral authority to talk about who is responsible for any fire or whatever. If he knows so much, then he should become the next fire chief. He should be removed as head of Guy Oil because of the millions of US dollar supposed racket he has done nothing about it. Look at all the members, most of the members of the Private Sector Commission who owes rates and taxes, hundreds of millions of dollars. Come on, man. Not only that, look at what happened recently to a member of the private sector, Gali Khan, jailed for 9 years in New York over drugs, jumping bail. And all these different things. I say this because what this guy, Paul Chung, and others should be talking about, they're not talking about. Look, just yesterday, another big drug bust in the Netherlands. Look, 530 kilograms of cocaine found out of Guyana. Departed Guyana, and they got busted in that Dutch country. Why Paul Chung? Why can't this guy, Irfan Ali charged with 19 fraud charges, let him talk about these sort of things. And if he has the names of these spokespersons, these political spokespersons in the US, let him call the names of those individuals if he gets seed more than Biden. Something else before we bring Dr. Van West-Charles on, Gadaki. Your choice.
Well, my choice of things before we bring on Van West-Charles is basically to address the public servants and say, y'all need to wake up. Public servants need to wake up and stand up and say to this administration, we are accepting 7%. It's not good enough. It's disrespectful. And if we have to, well, I see a unionist say, go slow. But I'm saying come to a dead stop. Public servants need to down tools and let this administration understand that they cannot continue with the disrespectful behavior and the discriminatory doling out of the nation's money, right? And so I'm encouraging public servants, choose a day, whether you call it a day of rest, a day of protest or something, but just down tools. And this is the season to do it, because one day of no work or little work in the public sector is going to have a very big impact on the friends, the enablers of the PPP on Regent Street and elsewhere in this country, because they got barrels and they got containers and so on lining up on the wharf to be cleared, hoping to get back the $2,000 that you have on your monthly salary. A lot of them are planning to get your $24,000 back pay into their coffers so that they can continue to contribute to the PPP WRHS. So it is time for you to take condign action. Shut down the public service for at least one day and ensure you boycott, buy only that which is absolutely necessary and avoid buying it from the enablers of this government.
Exactly. And some of those are right there in the Private Sector Commission, headed by this guy, a friend of Irfan Ali. These are the guys who have gotten billions of dollars of concessions off the backs of taxpayers in that country. If he wants to be a fire chief, let him be a fire chief. But he has thus far proven to be incompetent as the head, as the chairman of Guy Oil. Massive corruption at Guy Oil. And he's not saying a word. I've noticed, Kadaki, someone is asking here whether there's another drug bust. Yes, there's another drug bust right there. 530 kilograms of cocaine. 530. But they're quiet about these sort of things. All of them for obvious reasons. And now, Kadaki.
You know, Mark.
Yeah.
You know, when the Auditor General is forced to come out and say that there's massive fraud at Guy Oil, not I say forced, it has to be very big. Because if you look at the behavior of the Auditor General over the years, once the PPP is in office, the Auditor General really has no keen interest in auditing or carrying out his functions in a diligent manner. So it must be alarming for him to come out and say, well, hey, there's massive fraud at this entity.
You know why, though, Kadaki? The evidence was obvious. It was out there. So he had no other choice. None whatsoever. None. Kadaki, I want to talk to you about the fact that you were arrested and you were on that brick dam bench before it was burnt down, right? I'm glad that you were not in there, because you would have probably been blamed for having a lighter and a sponge and a long piece of wire. But let us bring in, we'll talk about that later on. Let us bring in Dr. Richard Van West Charles, and I'll give you the first shot to introduce him and ask him the first question. Dr. Charles, good evening.
Good evening, Mark. Good evening, Kadaki.
Good evening, Dr. Charles. Welcome to the program. I trust you've been keeping well.
Thank you.
Good. Well, introduction, by way of introduction, I will feed on my memory. I've known Dr. Charles. We always refer to him as Barnum's son-in-law. So he's well known for being married to one of Forbes Barnum's beautiful daughters, and a well-known doctor. At least I've always known him to be a doctor in the public service as a youngster growing up. And I note that I'm a youngster. Y'all remember that. Dr. Charles, I would have come into contact with him in recent times while he headed Guywa. And I think that he has done tremendous work to improve the water supply and distribution systems in this country for the short time that he has been there, right? And so if there's anything you need to know about Dr. Charles, at least in recent time, is that he seems to be a man who knows what he is about. When he is given a task, he certainly produces. I remember just before the elections, craziness and so on, he was doing wells in the interior, a place that perhaps the Guyanese never ever thought wells were going to be dug, because the residents there were accustomed to using the creek water and so on. And so, yes, those are some of the things I think people ought to know or are aware of in relation to Dr. Charles. Certainly, in recent times, he has been in the news as contesting for the chairmanship of the People's National Congress. And given the opportunity,
The leadership. Dr. Van Charles, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I wasn't hearing Kadaki very well.
Okay, Kadaki for a Buxtonian has a soft tone, but go ahead, Kadaki.
All right, so I'm saying in recent times, he has been in the news as running for the leadership of the PNCR. And so, given the opportunity, the first thing I would want to ask him is, what do you see, Dr. Charles, as one of the biggest challenges facing the PNC in terms of dealing with the current PPP administration?
Well, let me start off by saying, without an organized and robust PNCR, both the partnership and the coalition are not as strong as they should be. And so, to my mind, to be able to confront the PPP at all levels, an organized PNCR is critical. It's critical in terms of its political strategy for not only itself, but for the partnership and the coalition. And the partnership has got to be stronger. I know that you are a member of the WPA, and the WPA withdrew from the partnership, like the Justice for All. But I believe that we have to ensure that the partnership is stronger. And I believe that immediately after the elections, there must be a discourse initially with WPA and Justice for All and other actors in terms of broadening the partnership and the coalition. Important in what this means is that you will see a strengthened response at all political levels, including the parliamentary level, because presently I do not think the parliamentary level is as strong as it should be in dealing with government's violation of the programs, the procurement systems, and therefore we have to ensure, and even what is happening now with respect to the public servants and the 7% vis-a-vis the $250,000 to the sugar workers, which is a blatant discriminatory act against the public servants and disrespect to the public servants. So, and I caught a snippet of what you were saying in terms of the action that should be taken by the public servants. I do agree with you, and the 7%, to my mind, must be rejected out of hand. It does no one well to accept the 7%, and the civil servants need to understand that we all will stand with them to ensure that they have a better shake and a better share in terms of the resources of this country. So in terms of dealing with the PPP, there are a number of issues which we have to put on the table. And to deal with it, the issue of the police reform and the violation of the human and civil rights by the police as one of the issues, but more so the ethnic discrimination which is heightened under the PPP and which can make us or break us. I think they're playing with a ticking bomb if they continue down the road that they are going. The unilateral action by the PPP to knowingly discriminate. And I'm sure that quite a few of their supporters are not in tune with these actions by this group at the top of the PPPC. So I think coming out of the elections of the PNCR as a united force will ensure that we can be more aggressive and robust in our actions against the PPPC.
Thank you, sir. Mark?
Well, yeah, thank you, Kadaki. Good question. I wish that Dr. Van West Charles could position himself and face the camera so that the people can look into his eyes when he's talking. They want to ensure that it is the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Dr. Charles, I want to ask you, Van West Charles, I want to ask you a question about this guy, your father-in-law, the late Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham. On the day, August 6th, I was a little boy. I'm not sure if Kadaki was born yet. 1985. I heard on a little green radio that we had on the quarantine that the president then, Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham, this was about, I think sometime going on midday or something like that. It was many years ago. I was a little boy, that he died. And, you know, for me, as a little boy, hearing that the president died, it was the first time I heard of a president that died. And I heard of other people in the village died, but a president? I thought he was president for life, but he died on that day. Coming out of that, years later, as a big man now, you know, or even before I became a big man, I've heard many rumors as to why he died, how he died, and so forth. And one of those rumors is that, you know, running around in the streets, his son-in-law, ask his son-in-law how he died. And here I am now asking his son-in-law, how exactly your father-in-law died? And where were you when he died?
Well, let me say to you, that was a sad moment for our country. It was a sad moment for our family. It was a sad moment for our party. And a sad moment for many friends of his globally. I was in the theater at the time. I wasn't a part of the team. I was in the theater. But he arrested while the surgery was going on. And all efforts were made to resuscitate, but they were unsuccessful. It's amazing that this type of question is being made at this point in time, at the time of the elections of the biennial Congress, when I am a candidate for leadership. Leadership for a party that he founded. He was my father-in-law, he was my friend, he was my leader. My wife would normally say that because the relationship that we had, that she has married into the family. But let me say that one has to question the motive of these rumors at this point in time by the surrogates of those who are interested in power for the sake of power and not interested in the party. That cannot help us. I did not kill my father. And I will say that I've been repeating this over and over again. But those who are making the statement as if they are interested in the party, they should understand how much hurt and pain they bring to the family. And so, but we've been in politics for a good while. So the architects of those who are interested in power for the sake of their own power and not interested in the party, I want to say to them, Mark, that will not faze me. That my wife, myself, and the family, we are strong because we want to ensure that the legacy of my father-in-law is strong. And so the work continues on the ground, and no matter how many surrogates may be asking me this question when I move from one area to another, it will not stop me. So I want them to understand that my interest and our interest is rebuilding the party founded by Lyndon Forbes, Sampson Burnham, to be able to represent the issues of the people and to confront the PPPC. Building with other partners and other coalitions, because what is most important is that our people have a fair shake in this economy. And our people, I mean all Guyanese people. And the attacks being made on people, especially people who wear the brand of the opposition, will not be tolerated under my watch.
All right. Thank you so much for responding to that. Kadaki, your turn.
Dr. Charles, in the same light of these negative comments, I would have noted that the battle, the contest for leadership of the PNC currently is a bruising one. And at the same time, I'm noting your statements in terms of the importance of the party uniting, being stronger to confront the PNC. How do you see the PNC being a unified force after December 11th, considering all of the factions and the brutal fights that we're seeing for the first time, I dare say, by contestants for the leadership of this party? How do you see a reconciliation happening after December 11th?
Well, let me say to you that what we should have done before we started off the campaigns was to really establish a code of conduct for all candidates. And I mean all candidates, not only the candidates and their surrogates, and not only the candidates for the position of leader. But I think, where does the difference come? I am not a subscriber to a slate. I believe a slate is one of the components that generates the factions. And therefore, I have stayed away from a slate because it creates a problem in terms of, once I have a slate with a person who I identify as a chairman, and Kadaki wants to run for the chairmanship, I am immediately giving a message to Kadaki that I don't see him as being equipped for that position. So when the democratic process elects Kadaki, there is an issue between Kadaki and the leader or other members of that slate. So I don't recommend that. But moving forward now, after the elections, one has to be politically mature to immediately engage all of the contestants for the different positions and begin to look immediately at what are the issues affecting this party. If all of us, and the assumption being made is that we are interested in the party. So once that assumption holds, then to my mind, and I am taking a approach of a physician now, once the diagnosis is correct, then we all move together to agree on, to discuss on the interventions. But one has to be open, transparent, and trusting in this process for us to heal. There is a technique of dialogue which will permit everyone to speak. And there must be tolerance of different views. And that's why going forward, we have sought to begin to address this issue of a code of conduct, which will diminish some of the harsh words. But it is important and incumbent on all of us to be mindful of our behaviors and our words if we believe that the party, a unified party, will be the mechanism by which we can address the development of this country and ensure that the government is in safe hands.
I have, before we go to, because just a brief interview with Dr. Richard Van West Charles, I have one of my final question, and then Kadaki will have the final question over to you before we wrap up with Dr. Richard Van West Charles, who is contesting to become the next leader of the People's National Congress Reform. Dr. Charles, what will be your response, especially to folks who are of the view that you are from the old school, and then outside of that, you have been away from Guyana, and therefore you have not been grounding with the brothers and the sisters and so forth, so to speak, grounding with the brothers and the sisters, and so you were removed from the reality of Guyana. That's one, and if you can be very brief, I'd appreciate that. And the other one has to do with your sojourn over into the AFC. People seem to have those two things. They're concerned about those two things. Do you think that is those are legitimate concerns? And what will be your response to those individuals with that sort of question?
I do not think there are concerns which are related to the matter of hand in terms of the position as leader for the People's National Congress Reform. I am not from, I don't know what you mean by the old school, because I'm always on the cutting edge of what I do. I read a lot, and I am always there. But when I joined the United Nations, the World Health Organization, I was always home every year. As a matter of fact, when I was in Barbados, Jeffrey Thomas will tell you I was home nearly every month. When I have my weekends, I will just hop on a plane and come back home. But as I went further up the Caribbean, I will come on my prescribed home leave. And sometimes I will meet President Hoyt in the Caribbean. And when I return home on home leave, the first call is to President Hoyt, and we will meet at Congress Place to get an update and a briefing as to what is happening. I also interfaced with Comrade Robert Corbyn on a number of issues. When there was the flood, I was in Washington at that time. I mobilized resources to come to Guyana to assist, and for the party, that is. And I remember when I was head of knowledge management mobilized some computers, etc., for the library at the Georgetown Hospital. But I've always been in touch. Every year I have to come home and to have my sojourn, to understand what is happening. That's the purpose of home leave in the United Nations system, so that the person who is working in the United Nations system is not alienated from their roots. So I was always home. When ministers, etc., would visit wherever I am, I would be in touch. I remember even when, I think it was in Jamaica, President Jagan and Minister Rohi came to Jamaica. I was present, trying to talk to them, to understand their perspective also. So I have never been alienated from what is going on in the country. And as you know, Mark, when I came back, I had my NGO and did a lot of work in places like Sophia and did work in Linden, etc., in terms of dealing with poverty alleviation and learning. Now, with respect to the AFC, let me say to you, anyone in political life, the only thing that is constant in this world of human endeavor is change. And in a political life, you have movement based on different circumstances. And at the time, there were some differences, beliefs, ideological positions, and I took a time out. I didn't resign from the party at that time. But what is important is that it is the said AFC that came together with the PNC. And by that time, I had resolved the differences that I had within the PNC, because I am of the PNC, but sought to understand very clearly and to agree that coalition politics was relevant to our development. And I even had discussions at that time with Comrade Granger, who was not yet president. And I had discussions about the coalition. I had discussions with both Comrade Ramjatan and Moses Nagamutu. And at the same time with Carl Greenidge and others, who was heading the side of the PNCR with respect to bringing the coalition together. I believe that what is most preeminent is that when I left, my focus was on the development of this country. The purpose of any political party has to be on the development of this country, to ensure that the citizens are involved in the process and they have a fair share and that they can have access to a better quality of life. So that with respect to the AFC, I don't, from my perspective, and that is not a question that will cause me personally. I will continue to explain if people raise it, but I don't see the link between that sojourn and the difficulty of being the party from which I was a member for over 45 years.
All right, 54 minutes after 9 o'clock in beautiful Guyana, different time zone wherever you are. Dr. Richard Van West Charles is vying to become the next leader of the People's National Congress. He's talking about these things. We will have him more on this program to talk about his plans for the party, so forth and so on, instead of answering these who said this and who said that and all. I'm sure you want to talk more about your plans. We will invite you on some other night. We wish that the other candidates can come on to have a debate as well, or a town hall meeting. But briefly, we want you to respond to a question, the final question that my co-host Kadaki has for you. Kadaki?
And that question is right where you were going, Mark. And that question for you, Dr. Charles, is what makes you, what gives you the right to be the leader? What sets you apart from the other candidates to be the leader of the PNC?
Right. It doesn't give me the right. My only entitlement is that I'm a member of the People's National Congress to run as for any position that is open to be occupied. Let me say to you that when you look at this condition of the party at this point in time, and in terms of its organization and management, and you consider my experience starting from when I was Minister of Health, Water, Housing and Environment, and at the same time head of the Civil Defense Commission, and holding positions in the board of WHO, etc. And then I moved on to be also a Minister of Medical Education, Food Policy and Environment. Led the way for the birth of the medical school here at the University of Guyana. We had the first public health orthodontic program and establishing a network of health centers throughout the country, among other things. But then I joined WHO, and I was in Barbados responsible for the programs for 13 countries. And then moved on as the representative to Jamaica, for Jamaica, Cayman Islands, and Bermuda. And then on to Bahamas, responsible for Bahamas and Turks and Caicos. And then on to Washington, for a new department on information, knowledge management, research, and bioethics for Latin America, the Caribbean, and North America. So when you look at that experience and you compare my deliverables, I have always delivered, and then with my recent sojourn at GWI, where I restructured the company, and we provided first-time access to more than 100,000 people, and looking at the labs we set up in terms of water quality throughout the length and breadth of the country of Guyana. Those are my deliverables, and that's my experience. Now I bring that experience to the issue of the party. I have the political acumen. I understand the political framework of this country and the relevance of the party to the framework. My experience in organizational development and management outstrips that of the other candidates. And so it is not my right, but it is for the members of the party, and more so the delegates, who will be voting at the Biennial Congress, to consider those points, to consider my experience, to consider what is needed, and make a comparison between my other colleagues and myself.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Richard Van West Charles. Don't be a stranger. The 11th of December is around the corner. 107.1 FM. Again, we have a space for all of the candidates who are running for the leadership of the party. And I'm sure Kadaki and his program will have the candidates as well. Dr. Richard Van West Charles, thank you so much for your time this evening, sir.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Kadaki.
You're welcome.
And enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to your listening audience.
Thank you. All right, Kadaki, when will you be running for leader of the WPA?
Mark, I don't know about running for leader of the WPA. The WPA has always had.
I'm just teasing you. Just teasing you.
I will be among the leaders of the WPA.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have a maximum leader.
But outside of that, you guys don't really have like Congress and voting, because you guys have had just two sets of leaders for the past 30-something years. We'll talk about that some other time, man. We'll
There's
talk
a
about
different structure in the WPS against the PNC. The PNC has what you might want to call representative democracy, in that the delegates have to represent, and so that is why you'll have a Congress. The WPS structure is different, right? And so you're not likely to
what
get
is
a
the
Congress.
WPS? Well, just curious, what is the WPS structure?
The WPA has a co-leadership structure, and what you're going to have at the WPA is a members meeting who will vote and ratify leaders and so on, as against a Congress. But that aside, like I said, we'll talk about that. Let me take the opportunity, Mark, to invite viewers to join me on Sunday at 5:30. Big program on CAMS TV on Facebook Live. I'm going to have former Minister of Finance Winston Jordan, along with Dr. David Hines and Lincoln Lewis. So we have the economist, the politician, and the labor representative.
What time?
Sunday at 5:30.
5:30 your time?
Yes, 5:30 Ghana.
That will be 4:30 Eastern Standard Time in the US. And remind us here, we will carry that live as well. We will carry it live right here on Benchop Radio. Somebody's saying, leave the WPA alone. Leave the WPA alone. Kadaki, what's going on with that case? You were arrested for standing up for people's rights in that country. What's happening with that case?
We've had to make 2 appearances so far. The last appearance, we turned up only to find out, to find the court, the doors of the court closed. I guess that appearance followed the fire at Big Dam, and so there was no court. And we were told that we are to return to court on the 1st of December. So Wednesday next, I think, is the 1st of December. So we'll be there again. I'm anticipating that, just like the Ashes, that case will be blown over.
So do they still have the file, or the file blow into ashes?
Well, I do not know. I do not know if it was one of the files that the overseas-based arsonists wanted to get rid of.
Hey, watch it. Watch it. We know exactly who they're targeting. We know who those persons are. But that is why I'm saying to those kunumunus in the PPP, let them call the names of those international spokespersons. Let them call the names. Remember, we have 540 something million US dollars in the bank here in the US. Taxpayers' money, right? Let them call the names. If they get seed more than bygones, let them call the names. You see, on a serious note, everyone, almost even the smallest child in Guyana, understands why these fires are taking place under the PPP regime. It's a massive corruption and cover-up. And so because of that, even without an investigation, an independent investigation, they are pointing fingers. They want to say to their supporters, look who? They're the guys overseas. They're talking. They're terrorists. Who can be more terrorist than the PPP? Remember, under the PPP, they're the ones who harbored a guy named Al whatever, that was a Al-Qaeda operative who was in Guyana, who got a Guyanese passport, and all these different things. And we'll talk about that some other time. So the PPP, they know very well when it comes to terrorism acts and all these different things. They know who are the terrorists. Some of the organizations and some members of the Private Sector Commission are part of money laundering and all these different things, and gold smuggling and fuel smuggling, you name it. Some of them, some organizations were part of fueling money and funding Al-Qaeda network and terrorism groups and these sort of things. They don't want to get me started, but closing remark, please, Kadaki. Sorry, I got a little carried away there, man. Sorry.
Well, in closing, I want to say thank you for having me this evening, Mark, to co-host with you. And I must extend my gratitude also to the viewers. Thank you for allowing me into your space. I want to encourage you all that this is not the time to sit back and ask where the political leaders are and what they're doing and not doing. This is the time for each and every one of us. As I say, every canoe must sit down on the bottom. Every Guyanese citizen who wants to see a better Guyana, the time is now to stand up against this illegitimate and discriminatory government. Every public servant and everyone who has a relative in the public service and everyone who believes that the public service and the public servants are being mistreated should stand and hold hands and hearts together and say to this government, 7% can't work. 7% can't work. The discrimination cannot continue. And the nation's resources belong to every single Guyanese and must be distributed in a manner that is beneficial to every single Guyanese.
All right, and that is so true. People are saying that you're an old man. All the parables, the guy in a parable. There's one that I like, Ms. Booker, and others. They say something. I don't know. Oh, you know what's going on. What is it again?
Hint to Beniba, make Kwashiba take notice.
Thank you so much. But the funny thing is, though, that when we speak, when we tell the truth, and we expose the regime, something that they're not winning this PR battle at all. They can't win it because they don't have the expertise, they don't have the brain to do that. And so they oftentimes jump and say that we are racist and we are peddling problems and terrorism and all these things, but yet there's no evidence to substantiate that. But let me give a quick example before you go, and to our listeners as well, is that when the coalition, when David Granger was president of the country, look at all of the threats and the terrorism threats and all these different things, assassination plots and attempts, and all these, plots, and all these things. Look at them. Look at what's happening compared to us. You want to call us what? You've got to be kidding. And so that is what they jump to say. Penchap is a racist. Kadaki is a racist. Burke is a racist. David Hines is a racist, without the evidence, and that these guys are causing problems and all these different things. They have no evidence for that. And so because of all these fires, they're ashamed. They know exactly what they're up to. They have corrupted the Guyana police force with some of their own political workers in the Guyana police force. Look at what they did to Paul Slow and the Police Service Commission and the other officers there. They want their own cronies. Imagine Irfan Ali calling the then chairman of the Police Service Commission to have him do something, obviously, based on the conversation. It just doesn't happen at all. And so these guys know what they're about. They have no moral authority, including the head of Guyana. They have absolutely no moral authority to talk about terrorism, who is a terrorist and who is this and who is that. They need to be looking into the mirror. You said something earlier. And what is it? Something about a fool tell Mati, say you're a fool, but now look at yourself.
Fool attack, fool now listen.
Fool attack. Fool now listen. Fool attack. Fool now listen. Dear Fanali, I hope you guys are watching. Fool attack, but fool now listen. Give us.
But maybe, Mark, maybe the intellectually lazy are listening.
Somebody said, cursing me out because I said trench crappos. Now, all of a sudden I'm saying trench crappos. Mark is racist. Trench crappos are anyone who comes with dotish comment. They are trench crappo. Throw them in the trench. The Benchap said that the PPP vagabonds. I said they are political vagabonds. I have absolutely no apologies to that. And these terms now, the people jumping up and say, oh, Benchap are racist. Those are racial remarks. Give me a damn break. Look, have a great weekend. But again, people are looking forward for your music tomorrow. But I am looking forward for that interview that you have with former Finance Minister Winston Jordan,
Lincoln Lewis,
trade unionist Lincoln Lewis, and Buxtonian Dr. David Hines. It's going to be a bang-on program, as we say. It's going to be aired right here also. I'll take that feed from your platform, and it will be right here on 107.1 FM as well. Kadaki, thank you so much for your time. Give my regards to the Buxtonians and others in surrounding areas. Thank you so much, sir, and keep up the good work.
Thank you again. Good evening. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. And to all of our listeners right here on 107.1 FM, we will stream that interview with Kadaki that he will be having with David Hines, Dr. David Hines, former Minister of Finance, Winston Jordan, and veteran trade unionist, Lincoln Lewis. And remember, for those who are watching, Irfan Ali and the gang, what is it? It's a full attack. Hold on, let me get this thing right now. Full attack, but fool now listen. Full attack. Kadaki is an old man for real, right? Full attack, but that's the village of Buxton. All these different things. You guys got to remember it. Full attack, but fool now listen. Irfan Ali, full attack, but fool now listen. All right, so full attack, but fool now listen. We will be back not tomorrow, but on Sunday, we will carry that broadcast. But mid-morning show on Monday with Gabby, don't forget, tune in. Lovely interview she had this morning with Terry Gadraj. Look at this. I don't know. Fool attack, but fool now listen. Fool attack, but fool now listen. And to all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you all. Have a great rest of the evening. I want to play this here for those who the cap fit. Let them wear it. Fool attack, but fool now listen. Irfan Ali and your gang. Listen to this, because this is exactly how the population, majority of the people, feel about you guys in the installed regime.
What is the difference between the ordinary thief and a political thief? Number one, the ordinary thief steals your money, your bag, your watch, and your jewelry, isn't it? But the political thief steals your future, your career, your education, your health, and your business. Number two, the hilarious part is that the ordinary thief will choose whom to rob. But you are the one who choose the political thief to rob you. Because we choose them. We vote them. We blindly say we are not blind. Who is deceiving who? The ridiculous part of the whole issue is that we will fight to defend and protect our belongings from the ordinary thief. Is it not? But we fight each other to defend and protect the political thief. Is that not what we do? Thugs will be fighting themselves to protect those that are stealing our career, stealing our joy, stealing our health, stealing our success. What a shame. What a travesty. It calls for us to think and think deep. The stage we are in as a country is not a stage where you become an onlooker. You have become an onlooker for too long. You must get ready to put your hands to the plow and be part of the process. It's not just about PVC, carry PVC. You must be in the kitchen where it is being determined. You must be there where the decisions are being made. If we are there in our numbers, they cannot outnumber us. But you leave it aloof. Oh, no, it's too dirty. It's a dirty game. And then the dirty guy is getting to the game of play. And you are there not showing up. And when they begin to make the decisions, you will know whether it's a dirty game or not. The result is always dirty on yours. Dirty on your health. Dirty on your business. Dirty on your success and your career. I hope that is stirring up something in you.